Hi there, my name is Sebastian Rivera, and today I'll be talking about the role of NGOs in disaster management. This is for PAT 4391, and today's date is March 10th, 2021. First and foremost, what are NGOs and why are they important? NGOs, that is short for non-governmental organizations. They are private entities and affiliations. They operate outside of the purview of any existing government. So they operate outside of the United States government, of any political organization. And they typically try to address and work and respond to socioeconomic, political, and or humanitarian issues. They're not limited in scope to these. They can address educational needs. There are NGOs which try to educate populations which are largely underserved in certain countries. And they also work to build up infrastructure in other countries. There's construction NGOs. So there is a broad range of them, but they do work towards disaster management as well. NGOs can play an important role in disaster management, in fact, due to their non-affiliation with governments. And this non-affiliation with government plays into their three key traits, which are neutrality, impartiality, and independence. Let's talk about these three core values a little bit further. So neutrality, NGOs will typically work towards a broad range of goals and core values. So that may be free access to education, or that may be healthcare to all, or that may be responding to a specific need in a specific society to stakeholders. And they do this without any influence from political interest. They don't do it to advance a certain political goal or agenda. Typically, it's just to address a need that is met. That's why one of their core values is neutrality. Aside from that, they also have a core value of impartiality, which is they give this aid towards all, right? They're not trying to only give this aid to a certain population and ignore completely another population. If they exist in the same area, they're trying to address aid for all those given groups. Another core value is independence. They are independently funded by outside donors and investors. And you may think this may work toward against their neutrality because they will be funded by a certain donor to fund a certain agenda. But regardless, wherever their money comes from, it's to fuel the NGO's already established agenda and their already established goals. So what is NGOs' roles in disaster management? Well, they can play a role in every step of the way, actually, of the four phases in disaster management, which are mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. NGOs can play a vital advocacy role within the mitigation and preparedness sectors. There are specialized NGOs that can provide intelligence, that can provide information sharing to certain groups and help them prepare themselves against certain disasters which they may not be prepared to handle themselves. They can also and will typically serve in the response and recovery sectors more likely. And this is with just boots on the ground and being able to administer aid whenever governments are slow or unable to move forward. So you'll see this a lot with Doctors Without Borders when they are administering aid to certain groups, regardless of if the government has mobilized their own healthcare workers to that certain area, and they can mobilize quickly. This actually plays into my next slide very well. What can NGOs do well? NGOs are great to meet specific unmet requirements. So they are made up typically of experts in a specific field. So if it's healthcare, then those experts can quickly mobilize. They don't need to be told by an upper bureaucracy, okay, now you're good to go. They can typically move on their own and get to those areas and advocate for those people and immediately start to administer aid. They're also great for lobbying against violence. So this would be a great example of this would be the March for Our Lives organization lobbying against gun violence. And a great example of NGOs working in disaster management would be the American Red Cross recently, who has been able to raise funds and mobilize aid to thousands of individuals who have recently lost homes during the forest fires that have been happening in the earlier part of 2020 at the same time as the COVID-19 pandemic. Additionally, they have been able to find lodging for many people who have lost their homes in tornadoes in America with money that they have been able to raise. I have my sources listed there. These are the works cited: Disaster Health Management, Roles of NGOs in Disasters by Dr. Peter A. Leggett. These links right here to the Red Cross and other relief organizations for natural disasters